Welcome to the ModernizeOrdie Podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. It is 2/22/22. My son's birthday, so he's celebrating all the twos. And for those geeks out there, if you're in European time date format, you get to do some cool palindrome stuff, and even with the angiodome or something where it's upside down as well, which is pretty cool. Ambigram, that's what it is. It's too fancy for me. So, anyway, we're up to episode 136, so thanks for joining us, and I am Gavin Pickin, Senior Software Developer for Ortus Solutions, and I'm joined by another Senior Software Developer for Ortus Solutions, Daniel Garcia. How's it going?
It's great, and for any of you that thought Eric might be here, I am sorry to disappoint. You get me.
Yeah, we just, bait and switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eric just didn't get back from one of his errands in time, so Daniel stepped up. So thanks, Daniel.
See how many people are leaving right now because of it.
Oh, a lot of them. That's kidding. Just kidding. Okay. Well, first up, let's thank our sponsors, Ortus Solutions, the makers of ColdBox, CommandBox, ForgeBox, TestBox, and almost every other box out there. And a few ways we want to say thanks back to Ortus Solutions are we can like and subscribe on to our videos on YouTube. And the big way right now, what we're doing is we're doing a Reach for the Stars promotion with Ortus. So we want you guys to be able to help us star and fork our repos. You want to tell us about some of those repos and the best way to do it?
I do. So all of our repos, the ColdBox platform, ContentBox, CommandBox, Docker CommandBox, TestBox, QB, Quick, CBWire, woohoo, and DocBox. If you pull up those links on GitHub, there's a little icon in the top right that says star. So if you go there and click star, you'll be doing us a solid and showing us some love, which we really appreciate. And I think there's something cool Eric did that you were going to mention, Gavin.
Yeah, so Eric built this little command called CommandBox-GitHub. It's very, very new, so it doesn't even have a README yet. We admit it's pretty fresh. But the cool thing is it handles your login to GitHub, so you can do some OAuth basically with the CommandBox command. And then from there, if you run it inside of a directory, one of your repos, what it will do is it will look for all your dependencies that you have from your box to JSON. It'll go out and actually find all the GitHub repos if they have them, and then it'll automatically star them for you if you want to. So it's pretty neat that it just, basically run this command, get it connected, and if you use CommandBox help, you can get all the information. So Eric says the CommandBox help is fully documented, the README is not. So yeah, but anyway, it's pretty cool in that way. You don't have to remember which ones am I using, which ones do I want to go star. Basically, if your app is running, several dependencies using box to JSON, just use that CommandBox GitHub command, and you can star them all really easily, and it just helps. Like a lot of people basically use stars as the way to say how popular something is. So let's get a few more of our CFML repos out there with stars and help the Cold Fusion numbers as well. So
what I want to know is, Eric, are you accepting all feedback or only positive feedback again?
We'll find out, he says on there. Okay, so another way you guys can obviously help Ortus out is subscribing to our podcast on your podcast app and leave us a review. Also, sign up for a free or paid account on CFCasts, which is releasing new content every week. And then you can buy Ortus's book, 102 ColdBox HMV Quick Tips and Tricks on Gumroad. And we're adding a new CommandBox tip every week that Brad doesn't release his book. So we're up to 108 this week. So, a little inflation there for you, Brad. We'll see if he even listens. But anyway, so we're hoping we can get that CommandBox Tips and Tricks book out this decade. There's other way that you can support us, and a lot of you are already doing that, and that's through Patreon. So we have 36 Patreon supporters, and they provide 96% of the funding for this podcast, which is awesome. And you can find out more on patreon.com/OrtusSolutions. We'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of the show, where we spotlight several of our Patreon supporters and mispronounce all their names. So anyways, let's get into it. So, news and events. What do we got up first, Daniel?
And let me tell you, the first one, CBWire, is on fire, as is Grant Copley. So testing your front-end CBWire components is now a piece of cake with their simple testing API using TestBox. You can just box install CBWire at Bleeding Edge. I'll paste the link on there. And also, you should follow Grant Copley on Twitter. He's been posting a ton of great CBWire goodness lately, and I'll post the link to his Twitter as well. Keep it up, Grant. You're nailing it, and hopefully you get more subscribers or followers.
Yep, and so I'm just sharing for those watching the video, but you can see the test example here. So, wire my component dot set this property to some value, then you call some action, and then you assert that you're going to see this pop up in your component. So it's pretty cool. Pretty standard test methods, some toggling, some calling emits, assert see, assert don't see. So, it should be pretty familiar. And you'll see it in the bottom corner here. The next, the other item on the list here is Turbo. So he mentioned that in a couple of tweets too. So he's doing a lot of great work on it. Should be worth checking it out. I always say check it out. I'm trying to not say that just like you and you're awesome.
Awesome.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah. So CBWire's looking really cool. I need to play with that some more. But some other cool stuff that we have coming out. So obviously ContentBox 5 has been a big release lately and everything, and we've been doing a lot of work with ElasticSearch for quite some time, and now we have a new module, the ContentBox ElasticSearch Search Provider. So now you can have those search capabilities in ContentBox powered by ElasticSearch. So it makes it pretty easy to add things like, ingesting PDFs and MS Word documents, other document formats, as well as setting up your database, for better searching. And so that is available up on ForgeBox. We found an issue. We moved the repo from one organization to another, so we're updating the box.json. So if you don't get it, just check back. But basically, it's under the ContentBox modules repo organization, not the Ortus organization now. So, but that is up there, and it's pretty cool. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later, though.
Yep, you know it works if you click the link and you can see it. So our next item is Lucee 53980 release candidate 1. This release finally removes all traces of log4j1. And so we've got a new build with CommandBox 5.5 Alpha, which is 100% free of log4j as well, version 1. So please go on and help us test it, download it, check it out. I'll post the links, and it is exciting. Great work, everyone. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and it's a big release in the Lucee 539 stuff. Brad's got a ton of query optimizations in there as well. So it's a big release, but the log4j one is a big thing, and as Brad said in his tweet, get those infosec monkeys off your back. So definitely pretty cool. So it's good to see that. Okay, we also have this week we have quite a few webinars going on. So the Ortus webinar, What's New in CommandBox 5 with Brad Wood. He's going to be speaking on the 24th, which is Thursday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And so be talking about CommandBox and all the new features in CommandBox 5X. And tune in to find out, make sure you're getting the most out of your CLI. There's a lot of cool stuff. Brad is always adding lots of interesting and crazy things to it. And with all the extensions and modules we have for it, it's pretty awesome. So you can go to ortusolutions.com/events/webinars and find a list of all our webinars. And our previous webinars are available on CFCasts as well. And if you can't make this one will be posted there as well. We also have a new meetup for a new meetup group. You want to tell us about that, Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this might be the newest CFUG I've heard about. The Hawaii CFUG has a meeting coming up using CFCs, CF applications with John Barrett. So it's February 25th. It's on Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time. I'm not sure what time that'd be Hawaii time, but Central Time is the time I like the most. So basically, be a talk on using your CFCs and your applications, why they're cool, why they're good for reuse, well-organized code. Check that out. I'll post the link to the meetup as well as the brand new CF Hawaii CFUG website.
Yep, and I saw him post a few pictures online and some tweets saying that they've actually got like an in-person location. It looks pretty neat. They're hoping to get some people actually in person. We've got a lot of online stuff, happening these days, obviously, but it's good to see some in-person things happening where it's safe to do so, obviously. But it's cool. So I don't know how many developers there are in Hawaii, but it's a good reason to go. So I might have to check my schedule.
Yeah,
Okay. We also have an Adobe webinar coming up. So Cloud Report building using Cold Fusion and PDFs. So Mark Takata is going to be talking about using the Adobe Cold Fusion and the Adobe PDFs to build the no-code data sources. He'll be connecting to Google Sheets, generating PDFs based on all that information, using charting and everything else. So this really ties into the blog series, which we'll be talking about soon. But GraphQL, CFML, PDF services are all going to be used. So you want to see how he brings it all together. That's Thursday the 24th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And so it looks like you got a couple good webinars this week.
absolutely. And John asked about if Bill is still over there. I think he is for a while longer, but I think he might be heading stateside again.
Yeah, I think he's on the Big Island. I'm not sure. I have to look and see which island John Barrett's meetup is actually on. Obviously, multiple islands.
Yep.
Okay.
So speaking of workshops, we have another one coming up. Join the Adobe workshop to learn how you and your agency can leverage CF to amazing results. We already had one last week. You missed it, the 16th with Brian Sappy, but we got one coming up on Wednesday, March 9th at 9 a.m. Central European time with Damien Brundunks. I'll be posting a link for that as well as the full list of all of these. And when I'll be happy after March 9th when I can stop butchering his name.
No, you can't because he's got one in April, May, and June scheduled as well. But we're just not posting all the dates every week. I don't see any more for Brian coming up, but I'm sure that they'll have another one scheduled soon. But they have additional webinars and everything listed on that web link that you're posting there too, under the full list. So, yeah, okay. So there's quite a lot of news, but let's check out the CFCasts. So CFCast.com, we got some new content this week as well.
Absolutely. So just released using DocBox commands. It's a nice quick video on how to use DocBox commands to generate documentation using CommandBox. I think that's Michael Bourne giving that one, and it's a nice, cool, soothing voice. Will certainly help reassure you and why it's awesome. I did it. That's one. Using DocBox commands and CommandBox.
Yep, it's DocBox is really cool, and once you get the mapping set up to run the command, like it's pretty neat. That was the hardest part, is just to get all the mapping set up, because obviously DocBox looks at your code, and your code understands where other code lives to connect to it. And so if the CommandBox runner doesn't know where all your modules are, then it gives a couple of headaches. But Michael does a great job showing us how this works. So it's really cool. DocBox is a good little tool. Helps you learn about your code through self-documentation, basically. So
Yep. It's a 6-minute video, so just go watch it and learn. Also, Scott was asking if Brian's workshop was recorded. I do not know. I did paste the link for that on there, so if they are, it'll hopefully be in there. But we don't know. We can try and follow up with maybe Mark on that and see.
yeah, I'm not sure. I know the webinars, I think they do have the links to watch them later, but I do not know about the workshops. Okay, so next up, let's talk about some conferences. And we have DevNexus coming up in April, so April 12th through 14th, Atlanta, Georgia. Brad and Luis will both be speaking. Luis will be speaking about Alpine.js, declare on React with simplicity, and Brad will be talking about what's a pull request, contributing to open source. So I wonder what he's done to update this. This is a talk that he did quite a while ago for several conferences in the Cold Fusion world. We got a lot of good feedback too, because a lot of people, don't really work with open source. They sort of work in their community and in their job, and everything's done that way. And a lot of people aren't using Git and everything. So it's a good talk for sure.
Yeah, I also want to see Luis's Alpine.js session. I've been learning that lately, and it's pretty cool. I was surprised how cool that was. I don't know if you've used it yet, but
no, I haven't. I know it's all over the new ContentBox, and I've been busy on customer projects where I haven't had time to dive in, and I have to do that. As I used to be big into ContentBox, I just haven't had time, so I need to catch up on all the awesome stuff Luis has been doing to it. But if you go to devnexus.com, you can check it out, find out more information about it. They got a lot of good information in here. So, and it's part of what we do at Ortus is we try and look at other languages other workshops, other conferences to try and learn and see what we can do to improve Cold Fusion. There's a lot of things we love about Cold Fusion, but there's things we can learn from everything else too. So we try to see what everybody else is doing and learn from that and bring the best back to Cold Fusion. So that's another reason that Brad and Luis have been going to that conference for a long time.
Absolutely. And I know this next one, I know you're pretty excited about, Gavin. I don't know if you're going to it, but the Vue.js conference in Fort Lauderdale, June 8th through 10th this summer. Their motto is Beach Code View, but View V-U-E, not just the view of the beach. There's a workshop day on June 8th with the main conference on the 9th and 10th. The call for presenters is still open. Deadline is next week on the 28th, us.vuejs.org.
Yep, I sure hope I can get there. That'll be right before my birthday, so I have to see if I can make it work. Just got to figure out everything with the summertime and planning and everything, but looking at this site here for those watching, it does look pretty inviting. So, yep, it's obviously Evan Yu is the host, but there's a lot of great stuff, and I really want to dive more into Vue 3. We've been doing a lot of Vue 2, and I need to step up my game, so I think getting immersed with all the Vue 3 content there will be a great way to sort of start that process. Okay, we also have tentative dates for Into the Box 2022. We're looking at September 27th through the 30th. And then we have Into the Box Latam, which is tentatively December 1st and 2nd. We'll get more information as we get closer, but just wanted to give you guys an idea. That's when we're planning it. So if you need to, start reminding your boss that you're going to have the conference coming up, start mentioning those dates. Don't plan any vacations or anything around there. Just, pencil us in so we can get that.
As far as we know, that Into the Box will be in Texas somewhere.
Yep, it should be right there in Houston. We are looking at a new venue, and we're hoping to actually go try out the possible new venue for a little mini Ortus retreat coming up. So hopefully we can check that out, and if we like it as much as we hope we do, that might be our new venue for Into the Box. So if it is, I'm pretty excited about that option. So we'll tell you more as we know more. But yeah, pencil us in.
More conferences. If you need more conferences, go to comps.tech. Site has a huge list of conferences from almost any language community. I will post that link. Last year we did have Into the Box on there. I saw that they posted the Adobe Summit on there. As we get more conferences coming up, we'll be posting them there as well.
Perfect. Okay. Next up, let's talk about some blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So the first one we have from Vil de Bruin, and he's going to be talking about some CBRM event handling, tracking some issues with Lucee. So this one is pretty interesting. If you're not using CBRM, maybe you're not that excited about it, but it was an interesting one. I tried to help debug some things with him, and we found out that was not the issue. But a lot of the times when you're starting up RM stuff, the settings have to fire like immediately, basically when the server starts up. And a lot of times ContentBox hasn't initiated all the mappings for the module, so you have to make sure you have a mapping to CBRM and point to the right place before, basically at the time the server starts up. But that wasn't the issue. So I guess Vil said that he found, long story short, this little bit of code in 6.5 which basically checks to see if a ContentBox app key exists by looking in the CB bootstrap to get the ContentBox app key. And by doing this, because the application doesn't exist when you're in the on-application start, that triggers the on-request start to start before the on-application start is finished, which should not happen, but apparently in Lucee it does, and that's where all the issues were. So basically on request start was happening before on application start finished, from what I understand of what I was reading here. So we might need to make a little change to the CBRM to handle that better. There's an option to try and fix the issue in Lucee itself to try and stop that from happening. So but Vil said that 6.5 has already been out since July 9th, and obviously not many people have seen it or run into it, and it might just be that they're not using the Ortus CBRM event handler, and if you're not using that one, you're not using the interception points, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you have any other event handler here, it seems to work fine. So I know that Zach was asking if the bug was being there as well. Basically, we filed the bug, and I think Vil was basically looking at the point, making it publicly known so we could figure out what we should do. So right now they're, I don't know if he's filed the bug yet. I don't think so, but he's bringing it to everyone's attention so we can try and get it resolved. So I thought that was a, really good post to put out there, and then we can try and figure out, the best way to work around it and go from there. So I'm not sure how many people are using the ORM event handler stuff, but I thought it was pretty neat. So when you're adding, when you're actually creating new entities, you can, capture that event and like mix some stuff into it. But I guess it's that new 6.5 change just seemed to break a few things just by, triggering something which shouldn't probably happen. So.
Hey, it looks like Will's gonna file a bug, and Zach's PSA is they love detailed bug reports.
Yep.
As do we all.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like I said, I know Will's been trying to figure out what the issue was for a while now, so it's great to get that out there. And if you run into the same thing, it's nice when you find someone else in the same issue and you can, work together to try and get it resolved. So we're definitely appreciative of, all those steps, and hopefully we can get it resolved soon. Okay, we also had another one from Ben. So Ben Adele, storing encryption key version as a prefix on the encrypted field in MySQL. So this was an interesting one. And so this goes back to an older one he mentioned where, he was upgrading encryption keys because they wanted to rotate them out. And so basically he would go through this process of creating a new database field, putting the the version in there, and then basically run a script to go through and change everything up to the new version, and then basically remove it. And so he had this whole process, and so this is basically him just looking at what he was doing and how he could make it better, because he didn't feel great with the database schema migration piece. And so he was looking at things like bcrypt, which actually stores the algorithm, the computational cost, the salt, and the hash all together in one string. So that way you always know, just looking at the information, what's there. And so he talked about that. And then obviously he's like, well, I don't want to put too much information in the variable because then it makes it easier for someone to decrypt, because this is the stuff he was doing was encrypt and decrypt. So this way, basically he was thinking about abstracting it. But it was kind of an interesting approach. And I mean, I do like that with bcrypt. It was much easier to work with bcrypt than it was some of these other database setups where you had 3 or 4 fields for the passwords. If you change the password, just make sure everything else did that. So basically it was a nice blog post. So it's definitely one of those things you come up with. Security wise, you've got to look at abstracting away the details that you don't want people to have, but also making sure that things are up to date and you're rotating everything. So it's a good blog post. I really like that one. Makes me think. Ben always makes me think. So.
Okay, and I did post that on there. We got another blog entry. I don't know how to pronounce his name, so please help me, Gavin. It's Gray Desmond.
Yeah, it's probably not right, but that's what I would say. So best guess. Sorry.
Sorry if I messed that up. Rounding large numbers for easier display. Let me go ahead and post that in here. So basically, we need to display simpler or rounded values of large numbers, like say a billion or 10 billion or even millions. A lot of times in the table, you don't want to see a string that's like that long. And so what he's suggesting is being able to divide by a billion or a million, depending on your string, to get a much smaller number that's easier to display. And then if you do need decimals, just use number format with the correct mask, and then that'll also round it for you. So yeah, a nice little, when you read it, it's like, oh yeah, of course that works. But sometimes we don't really, think about these things. And it's a great example of a simple solution to a what could have been a more complex problem.
Yeah, that's the thing he said, is like, I got stuck on something which ended up being extremely simple. But sometimes you got to look at the problem from different angles, and then something might pop up. So, very cool. Okay, so we have another one from Benedal, and this one is about irrational guilt of returning queries from his data access layer in ColdFusion. And so I actually tweeted a couple more things to him about this afterwards, because it's one of those things we at Ortus, we're always like, CommandBox is great. You could do this, you can do that, and this is good, and dependency injection and all these other things. And sometimes I think people, get rubbed the wrong way. But we're just trying to give you, make sure that you have access to all the information, But in the end, it's your choice on how you want to implement things, and that's something Ben sort of felt here is like, these things have worked, and these things have been good for him, but he feels guilty about it. And so this one here, he's basically like, what, this guilt is stupid, and that's what I was trying to say to him. It's like, it's okay to choose, everything has pros and cons, but in the end, you've got to make the best decision for your app and your company, and you've got to maintain it. And so, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and start from scratch all the time. So anyways, this is 5 reasons that he thinks, it's okay to do what he's doing, and it is. So basically, he talks about how he leans heavily on the database and his Cold Fusion application. So, having queries being returned is not that bad. He's got a dependency on it, and that's okay. And queries are just structures. They're just like everything else. And query objects don't make testing harder. And the service layer is still a black box to the rest of his application, so that's okay. And, the Cold Fusion query objects is wonderful, and he's okay with that. So this was just sort of him justifying it, and, some people say you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. But, sometimes it doesn't make sense to change everything, There's a lot of things at work, and you've got to figure out if all the changes that you might do just because everyone else is doing it, if they're actually worth it or not. I've got some legacy apps where I've added Wirebox and Logbox and everything because they were really, really important, but I haven't changed my whole MVC yet. There are other things that I could do that I haven't done because, it's not the be-all end-all just to use the latest and greatest, just like Cold Fusion, right? Otherwise, none of us would be using it because it's not the latest and greatest. So you got to make sense, weigh it up. And so this is Ben just talking about that, and it's a good post. And so anyway, I just wanted to make sure people know that, just because we obviously preach all the things we have because we've built tools to solve problems, doesn't mean you have to use them all. Like there are other things out there. There's use cases that make perfect sense for not using some of the things we talk about, but we want to make sure you at least know about them, because if you don't know about something, you can't choose it or use it or learn from it. So.
Absolutely. You had made a comment about don't throw the baby out the bathwater. I'm trying to remember the reference. It was something like, because all you have is an angry, wet baby. I don't know why that's like sticking in my head. I got to look that up later. But
yeah.
For sure. Anyway, so we got Mark Takata with Adobe. We got a couple of blog series that he's been doing. The first one is building a data import using cloud data source in CFML. Basically, the app will take a non-database data source, in his case, a Google Sheet, import that spreadsheet into his data flow into tables, and then allow the user to work with that data and push it into an online database. I think he's using AWS DynamoDB for that, because his next blog entry is part 1 of building a data import workflow using cloud data source in CFML. So to carry on the first blog post, it's basically him implementing the steps of importing that data using the cloud web data sources and CFML, and he starts by using AWS and DynamoDB. So I will post both of those out there so you can start following along.
Yep, and he actually has a couple of little Twitch videos that he's doing for some of these too. And so actually I missed a couple of these previously. Charlie mentioned to me, I don't know how I missed them, but Charlie's great about making sure all the good content gets out to us. So I signed up for the little RSS feed, so it should email me now, so hopefully I won't miss as much. But yeah, so he's got a good little series coming in here. And like I said, he's doing some live coding videos as well, so that's pretty neat. Obviously, he's got his webinar coming up this week as well, which is very similar content, so he's really, covering this all really well. Okay, so next up we have another one from from Ben Adele. I'm reading another blog from Ben. How about that? And so this one is ignoring loopback WebSocket events from Pusher and Lucee. And so he's been using WebSockets for over a decade now, which is kind of crazy. I know that CFML, we've had WebSockets for a while. Giancarlo Gomez is like the WebSocket guy in the Cold Fusion world, and he does a lot of speaking at conferences about that. But so Ben's been using Pusher, and it's a SaaS product or whatever, and as he says, it takes away all the complexity around it. And so one of the things he came up with, though, is basically if you have 2 browsers and you're firing one from one event, it'll fire out. WebSockets will push it to all the browsers connected, and sometimes it'll repaint or like basically reprocess on the one that started it. So if you started on browser 2, send the WebSocket, then on browser 1 it processes it, and then browser 2 it'll reprocess it, even though you just sort of took care of it. So he just talked about a way that he uses a browser header to sort of take care of that. And but I just thought it was neat looking at how he's using WebSockets, and so WebSockets are pretty cool. We're using them with some RabbitMQ for some clients, and I know there's built-in ones with Adobe and everything, but it's kind of neat to see some other alternatives out there. So another good blog post from Ben.
Yep. And then we got another one from Mark Takata, using GraphQL to interact with Google Sheets using BaseQL. Basically, you no longer need to Pro Table Error account, and BaseQL now supports Google Sheets as a data source. Mark goes on to show how to work with it. Let me paste that link. I've never used BaseQL, and I am just getting used to saying BaseQL, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, Mark's on a big GraphQL kick lately, and this is part of it. And that's why there's some hints that the next version of Adobe might have some GraphQL stuff built in directly. But yeah, he was the previous blog post, which I think we did talk about. We didn't miss that one. Was talking about how he used it with Airtable APIs, and obviously it's a paid service. And so yeah, this one's using with Google Sheets, and he builds on top of it in that other blog series you talked about. But here you see that he's got his Twitch TV account there. Mark Takata is on Twitch, and check it. You may want to follow him if you're on Twitch, because he does some live coding stuff. So I don't know if he's got the recording there or not on this one, but sort of he works through that, and he did mention that this is highly beta tested, so don't go in production yet. But yeah, that does look like a cool way to work with it. And GraphQL is really cool. I heard a lot about it. A couple years ago it was really big. So I haven't heard as much about it lately. I don't know if it's just falling out of flavor, or if everyone's just using it so much now that we just don't hear about it because it's already cool. But Mark's definitely doing a lot with it, so it's kind of neat. Okay, and then we have another one too from Mark, and this one just here is about learning about CFML. And so a lot of times we get asked, what you should go check out, and so Mark gives sort of a pretty good rundown of some of the learning resources available. So these ones are like the Adobe Certified Professional, the webinars they have, Learn CF in a Week, Modern CFML 100 Minutes, the CF Docs, the Adobe ColdFusion Docs, and of course the Adobe ColdFusion YouTube channel. There's probably a lot more out there, but this is a pretty good base, so when anyone asks, this is a good list to give them for sure. So very cool to see Mark, sharing a lot of community resources there too, not just the Adobe stuff.
I think Eric was commenting on GraphQL, maybe saying front-end developers love it, back-end developers ...
Yep, that's what I'm curious what the ColdFusion implementation will do, because we looked at doing some stuff with it. I know Mark, his name's just gone from me. Oh man, hate it when that happens.
Which name?
Yeah, basically Mark Drew, I think it was, did some work on GraphQL a few years ago when it first came out, and was working with it. And basically, it wants to work with your data source. It can spread across lots of different data sources, and like Eric said in the chat, that it's tough because the front-end team wants to basically have a system that can generate any SQL and be lightning fast. And when you're going across multiple data sources and types, and you've got to figure out the best way to query it, it's really hard to do. So you can make it work, but not necessarily fast. And if Adobe's doing it, I'm wondering, are they going to tie it into sort of like Hibernate, because obviously that's your data mapping, and if it is, then you still need to make sure your ORM is, really good. And, there's options there, but I'm curious how they would approach it, because implementing it can be tricky. And like Eric said, implementing it and making it work fast is a different story completely. So, but it's really cool to see all this stuff out there, and, yeah, kind of curious how to work. And I think I just found a typo in Mark's email. His blog post. It said CMFL, so we might need to let him know about that.
Yeah, so I'm not the only one.
It happens to all of us. Okay, so let's do CFML Find a Job. So getcfmljobs.com Has 42 listings there from the last few weeks. And how many new ones we got this week?
One new job listed. It's a full-time position, Cold Fusion developer at Kochi Karidaram, India, on February 18th. I actually looked that up on the Wikipedia, and that's how they said to pronounce it, or at least how my ears heard how to pronounce that.
Yep, there's quite a few job posts here recently, so go check that out. And also, I believe Ortus still has a couple of jobs posted there on their site as well. So we have the on About Us/careers, and I think we're looking for a position in the U.S. time zone and also in El Salvador team. So let me share my screen for those watching, and we'll see if I'm right. Yep, so we have a senior Cold Fusion CFML developer on a USA team. And again, the USA time zone is a must, and the citizen or resident work visa is a must for the US job. But we also have the El Salvador team. And so, web designer, if you can read all this, then maybe you can apply.
Yep,
so, a couple of jobs.
A nice perk, you get to work with people like Gavin and Eric and Grant and others.
Yeah, that's definitely a big perk from working with this team. It's nice to surround yourself with people who are, really good and passionate people as well. So, there's always something to be learned from someone else. So, yeah, and Eric says we're perma hiring for awesome developers. That's true. We're definitely wanting to keep growing our team, and we got a pretty good team, and we just want to keep making it bigger and better. Okay, so next up, let's talk about ForgeBox module of the week.
Okay, so I think we mentioned this earlier. ElasticSearch for ContentBox. Let me get the link to you. It's a ContentBox module provides ElasticSearch capabilities for ContentBox CMS. Be basically able to ingest attachment plugins for Elasticsearch, add capabilities of searching PDF, MS Word, other supported documents from what you specify.
Yep, it's definitely a big improvement. We love working with the CB Elasticsearch stuff. John and Michael Bourne and Eric have done a lot of work over time, and we've implemented it for lots of different clients now. And so bringing it into ContentBox is pretty cool. So there are a lot of features. As it says in the README, it's really nice if you want to use environment variables to send things, and you can use the settings structure like this, but a lot of times you need to re-init so the engine can pick up all those settings as it needs to. But we do have a Docker. If you want to get up and running with the Elasticsearch, you can do that there. But yeah, it's a pretty cool tool, and I know that we've got a couple of webinars, I think, about it, and just Elasticsearch in general. And I'm sure we'll be doing more. It's a big plus for ContentBox. Okay, so next up, let's talk about our VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week. And so this one here, Brad might want to roll over in his grave, but we're talking about Live Server. So Live Server is an alternative to our CommandBox server when you're doing some less codey things. So Live Server is basically a nice, easy way to work with your code. If you're doing templates or you're looking at certain things on your sites, you can basically make changes, save it, and it'll automatically update, just like a lot of other tools have. And so that's built into VS Code. The cool thing is you can do it with dynamic pages. So we haven't obviously upgraded the Cold Fusion stuff in here, but I'm wondering if we could sort of tie into an existing CommandBox server and sort of look for some updates there. But I think someone did something where there was like some on save, it would try and reload browsers. But anyway, so there is some option for that in the future. But right now it's really good if you're doing some template design or CSS stuff, or if you've got other things. A lot of times with CBMail services, we get emails popping in, or if you're using the test visualizer and you need to view that in a browser for the visualizer to read your test JSON content in. It's nice to have a browser, and sometimes it's nice to just click a button like go live here on the bottom and not have to worry about spinning up CommandBox for this little thing. So maybe that's what. So Scott said there's a browser sync module, so maybe that's another alternative that we could sync up with the browser, and then that way when you're changing code. So that's in ForgeBox. So, yep. So I think yeah, so maybe that's already there. Scott said in ForgeBox there's a browser sync that we could tie into, so pretty cool. But yeah, but this is a nice one, like I said, for those sites or pieces of your site which isn't necessarily running CommandBox server. You could use that. So it has like 20 million downloads, so it's a pretty cool little plugin, and it makes sense in a certain world for sure.
I just pasted the link Scott mentioned to browser sync. I'm gonna check that out. I had for that recently.
So we're adding that to the show notes too. So again, sometimes you don't need live server. You can use CommandBox. But for those of you who aren't using CommandBox and this might use, meet a need or whatnot, it'd be pretty cool. So I know that using things like Quasar, they have that built in, and it's really nice to make some changes, save it, and everything reloads. So there we go. So the VS Code live server, or use browser sync with CommandBox.
Nice. I'm still jazzed about the whole CommandBox supporting engine none, just using it as a straight up HTML or static.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Like I said, I like to have quick access to things. So, and a lot of people don't use CommandBox, so this is another option for them. And yeah,
I don't know why. I know why.
Okay.
Haven't had time to check it out.
Yep. Okay. Well, last but not least, let's thank all our Patreon supporters.
Yep. So these individuals are personally supporting our open source initiatives to ensure that great toolings like CommandBox, ForgeBox, CodeBox, ContentBox, TestBox, and everything box that we put out there, and keep getting the continuous development they need, and funds the cloud infrastructure, our community, which relies on ForgeBox for package management with CommandBox. I got to read that better next time. I apologize, everyone. But you can support us at Patreon here at patreon.com/Ortus Solutions. I'll get the link out there. And that is there.
Yep, it's pretty cool, and you do get some perks with it now. So we do have the 10% for annual membership, so if you want to save 10% with that. We have bronze packages and ups. Now get ForgeBox Pro accounts and CFCasts subscriptions. It's a perk for the Patreon subscription. All Patreon supporters have a profile badge on the community website, which is community.ortussolutions.com. We also have their own private forum on their community website for all those Patreon supporters too. So you get a little special access to us from being a Patreon supporter. So we thank you for that. And we have a new supporter, so Peter Ameri, who's the latest sign up. So thank you for your new patronage. And so let's go through the names. You want to do the honors today, Daniel?
I absolutely will. So first up is John Wilson from Synaptrix, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Mario Rodriguez, Giancarlo Gomez, David Bellinger, Dan Codd, Jonathan Parrott, Jeffrey McGee with Sunstar Media 6, Dean Maunder, Joseph Lemery, Don Bellamy, Jan Yannick, Lakshmi Turtahadi, Carl Van Stetten, Jeremy Adams, Didier Lesnicki, Matthew Clemente, Daniel Garcia, Scott Steinbeck with Agri Tracking Systems, Ben Nadell, Brett Deline, Kai Koenig, Charlie Earhart, Jonas Erickson, Jason Diger, Sean Oden, Matthew Darby, Ross Phillips, Edgardo Cabezas, Patrick Flynn, Stephanie Mongi, John Wish, Kevin Wright, and Peter Amiri.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. It's really great to have the support here. And if you want to, you can go to ortussolutions.com/about-us/sponsors to find out more about it. So very cool.
I see Peter joined the podcast. Hey, Peter, welcome.
Yeah, good to see him in here. Yeah, it's very cool. And thanks everyone for chatting it up in the chat with us live every week. We're on YouTube. So if you guys can join us, it's great. But for those listening on the podcast, we still appreciate you too. And sorry for all the video comments that you can't see, but that happens. But great. Appreciate everybody. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you all next week. Enjoy your Tuesday.
I will too.
Have a good one, everybody.
Good night.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.